Today's community moment is John Bradley. A little bit about him, his hobbies, he listed as business intelligence, his kiddos, philosophy, and cooking. I asked for typically 3 words to describe him. He gave me a whole bunch. So he wrote, occasionally extroverted introvert, dichotomy in motion, and unboundless curiosity. And if he had a warning label, it would be very, very long fuse attached to an atomic bomb. Please welcome John Bradley.
Am I on? Sweet. First off, are there any other ex-Mormons today here? Woo! So I am going to talk about an experience of being on a Mormon mission and what was that was like. I need to be this is so I can have a computer so I can actually see. And it was very available in the back closet. So I grew up in Salt Lake City. And I've got 5 brothers and a sister who are all wonderful people. I grew up in a suburb about 15 minutes south of Salt Lake. My family are all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We were all raised as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 2 of my siblings and I have left, which is great. Most Mormon families, as you probably aware, are very, very conservative, physically, socially, except for some reason they don't support Donald Trump, which seems very strange. But my family that I was raised in had a lot of paradoxes, though. My parents were very, very well educated. My dad has a PhD in zoology and a law degree. My mom has a master's in education. And at dinner, we talked about evolution. We read great books, and we had great discussions about everything. Everything we could talk about, except for the truth claims of Mormonism. Everything else was on the table. But the truth of Mormonism was just assumed in my family. We read scriptures every single night, or every morning at 6 a.m. We did family meals, family prayers, weekly church for 3 freaking hours a week, youth activities, the whole thing. And I assumed that I knew that Jesus was my Savior. Did you hear how I worded that? I assumed that I knew. Which is very Mormon. I was a not very rebellious, but semi-rebellious child. I drank Coke. I did smoke occasionally and drink alcohol on occasion. So I wasn't the perfect Mormon child, but was very, very ensconced in the culture. When you are 19 as a Mormon young man, you are assumed to just go on what they call a mission. And the experience leading up to this mission is rather bizarre. You go through a series of interviews, starting with your bishop, who's your local congregational leader, and then what's called a stake president, and they ask you questions about whether you've had sex, and whether you've drinking alcohol, and whether you've had sex with animals, and all sorts of very bizarre things. And I lied a lot and passed with flying colors. I got to go through the Mormon temple, which is a very, very culty experience. And during the break, I can show you the secret handshakes. One of the interesting things about preparing for this mission is you send off these papers, this giant laundry list of things they ask you, what language you speak, all this stuff. And you send this in, and you expect a prophet to give you an answer of where you're going. And my brothers went to Germany and Spain and Japan, and I got my papers, and I got to go to Boston, which was great. Boston's awesome. I left in June of 1999. When you start your mission, Growing up, everyone talks about the best 2 years of their lives. The best 2 years, they say, and that's supposed to be your mission. And you go to this place called the Missionary Training Center, and the Missionary Training Center, you have this rigid schedule that is going to last for 2 years. You wake up at 6:30, you get dressed. At 7, you start studying. 7 to 8, you study. 8, you eat breakfast. 8:30, you study until 9:30, and then you get in these groups and you start bearing testimony to each other, and people teach you how to teach Mormonism. You have lunch, and then you study again, and then you have dinner, and then you study again, and then at 9:30, you have an hour to yourself, and 10:30, you go to bed. And that's what it is for 2 years, except for when you're on your mission, you're walking around being bored, trying to fill your time. One thing that's really bizarre about Mormonism is that this idea of testimony. So we bore so much testimony to each other in the MTC. And I'm going to read a quote from this dude named Elder Dallin H. Oaks. He says, "This is so culty, but so amazingly testifying of Mormonism's ability to creep into everything. Another way to seek a testimony seems astonishing when compared with the methods of obtaining other knowledge. We gain or strengthen a testimony by bearing it. Someone even suggested that some testimonies are better gained on the feet, bearing them, than on the knees, praying for them. So how do we gain a testimony? We keep saying it over and over and over again. So Mormon testimony sounds something like this. I know that Jesus Christ lives. I know that Joseph Smith is a prophet of God. I know. But how do you know? It's through this feeling you have. You read something and you say it over and over, I know. And then suddenly you're a full-blown Mormon. So I arrived in Boston in July of 1999 and just totally fell in love with New England. How am I doing on time? Any idea? Okay, thanks. The experience of being on a mission is largely one of obedience and boredom. You are constantly trying to find your time or fill your time with knocking on doors or talking to people in public or going to dinner with other members of the Mormon church, eating dinner, trying to get them to sell their family to you, to the Mormons, or sell their friends to you. And I don't mean sell, but trade or whatever. So it's you've got these blue. When I was a missionary, you had these blue binders, and you filled out every aspect of your day, and so every part of your day, you're trying to do something to bring other people to the Mormon Church. But there is two purposes to a Mormon mission, and the first purpose is to convert other people to Mormonism. But the secondary purpose, or I think actually probably the primary purpose, is to convert the missionary to Mormonism for the rest of their life. You go and you are the target of a very systematic brainwashing program, and I'll kind of see if I can demonstrate some of this. So my claim is that if you look at models of how to alter patterns of belief, that is the single most important activity of the mission, is to alter patterns of belief, creating lifelong Mormons. There is this mental health person named Stephen Hassan. He's a counselor or something, I'm not sure exactly, but he came up with this acronym called BITE. Have you guys heard this before? The BITE method of control. So it stands for behavioral, information, thought, and emotional model of control. So I want to talk about how this intersects with my mission and really what I think the purposes of these Mormon missions are. So I went to the BITE website and I off a bunch of bullet points, and I want to talk about some of these bullet points and my experience when I was out there as a missionary. So, behavioral control. Dictate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates, or the missionary. So you are given a companion that you cannot be out of eyesight except for when you go to the bathroom 24 hours a day. You are literally with this person all day long. No privacy, no alone time, no nothing. When and how and with whom the member has sex? Well, no sex. You can't touch girls. It's highly regulated. Masturbation is also prohibited. And all forms of sexual behavior are controlled. This is a masterful way that religion, I think, controls these young missionaries. Is we're all horny young 19-year-olds, and in order to go have sex, we have to go on a mission. That's part of the process. We control the types of clothing and hairstyles. Well, duh, have you guys ever seen Mormon missionaries? And they'll look exactly the same, right? Like insurance people selling religion. Financial exploitation, manipulation, or dependence. So Mormon missionaries pay for the privilege to be missionaries. The church doesn't fund the missions. We pay $450 a month for every missionary in the world, was what we paid when I was on a mission. Whether you went to Boston or if you went to Nicaragua, where it costs vastly different amounts of money. And then in Boston in 1999, you had $140 a month to live on. And so I ate a lot of potatoes with ketchup. Restrict leisure, entertainment, and vacation time. We had what was called a preparation day. So we got to play basketball once maybe from noon until 6, one day a week. And this was like the most glorious day of all days. But you had to have your laundry done, you had to have your cleaning done, and then you could go play basketball or football or whatever you want. Let's see here. So thoughts, feelings, and activities are reported to superiors. There's a very strong culture of self-reporting and reporting on others. You go through weekly interviews, and every time that you're in these interviews, they ask you, "Elder, how's your companion doing? Is he following the rules?" And you narc on him. You tell him all the sins of your companion, which is really, really terrible in terms of your mental health. You're always worried, because no missionary is perfect. We're all 19-year-old kids trying to fill the day with when it's as boring as possible. And you can't do something all the time, always right. And then your companion is saying, "Hey, at 12:30, we were supposed to be reading the scriptures, and I saw you, you're just staring at the wall." They're reporting these kind of things. They discourage individualism, encourage groupthink. So you're discouraged to not use your first name ever. You're depersonalized. I was Elder Bradley for everyone for 2 years, never John. And then they imposed rigid rules. There's this thing called the White Bible. You had it in your pocket. You were required to carry around with you. There's 200 rules in this book. I'll give you an example of a couple of rules. There was a rule in this book that said you couldn't play full court basketball. There was rules about not sailing. There's rules about every aspect guiding your existence for this 2-year period. I was, when I got home, a fully committed Mormon because of this program. And luckily, I was able to figure some things out. But when you see these young missionaries, I would just recommend that you understand that they're in this incredibly pressure cooking situation, and that you should give them water. You should talk to them. Don't listen to what they say, but talk to them. It was a very interesting experience. That's all. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, John. Actually, I'm really interested, really quick, like if some missionary comes to our door, what is the best way to kindly support the hell that they are kind of living through? Like, what would be a tangible way other than giving them water and just being nice? Because I know you can't really argue with them. You can't hand them the CES letters. You can't.
No, do.
You can?
Do that. No,
okay.
I mean, honestly, in my opinion, you should do everything you can to break the cycle that they're dealing with. So on Reddit, there's lots of examples where missionaries got hold of the CS letter and took control of their lives and left and went home and got out of, I don't like to use the word cult, but escaped the cult of the mission.
So that actually is helpful?
Yes.
So can you post the CES letters in our private groups? If you don't know what that is, it just lays out all of the holes within Mormonism, right?
It's very likely that they won't listen because they're intensely being put through this kind of brainwashing situation. But some do. But give them water and be nice, and they are going through the most boring, hellish time of their lives, most likely, and then calling it the best 2 years of their lives.
Yeah, that's sad. That's really sad. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.